it's always the Republicans, it's always conservative views that get silenced, shadow banned, censored from these various algorithms. The glitches never cut the other way. The mess ups in the coding never skew against Democrats. It's always conservative.
What are you talking about?
CNN's Abby Phillip had a panel on her show to discuss the ongoing problems with freedom of speech, Jimmy Kimmel's return to ABC after the fallout from the Charlie Kirk incident. Abby Phillip had two MAGA stooges in Hogan Gidley and Brad Todd to whine and complain about supposed unfairness to MAGA and conservatives and to spread misinformation and disinformation, which was just another night on CNN. We're going to take a look at these clips from Abby Phillip's show. I will share my thoughts on this as well. Let's get into it together.
The return of Jimmy Kimmel. 7 days ago, it'd be hard to believe that a Tuesday night episode of his show would be the talk of the town, but here we are. He's back on the air later tonight after ABC suspended him over what the network calls ill-timed Charlie Kirk remarks. But of course, it came after the Trump administration's threat to punish him or else. Critics blasted ABC for giving in, calling it McCarthyism. But as he returns to the air tonight, nearly a quarter of ABC stations won't see anything at all. The two local TV giants Nexstar and Sinclair are both preempting the show with a boycott. Now, combined, they own 70 stations across America, including cities like New Orleans, Seattle, St. Louis, Nashville, and right here in Washington, D.C. But Kimmel is getting support from a Trump supporter, Joe Rogan.
First of all, I definitely don't think that the government should be involved ever in dictating what a comedian can or cannot say in a monologue. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Now, if the problem is the companies, if they're being pressured by the government, so if that's real, and if people on the right are like, yeah, go get them, oh my God, you're crazy. You're crazy for supporting this because this will be used on you.
And that's an argument that we've heard not just from Joe Rogan, but a number of Republicans, including Ted Cruz, Brad. I mean, do you think that right now where we are is as it should be? He was suspended for a time. Disney brought him back. He's going to address this tonight one way or another. And it just gets settled as any sort of, maybe employment issue gets settled without the hand of the government involved.
Well, I'm not for the hand of government dictating speech or people losing their job over speech, but we've been here for a while. During the Biden administration, they pressured tech platforms to squelch news stories that were critical of their COVID response. They buried the Hunter Biden laptop story. New York Post lost their privileges on social media because of it. So we've been in this spot for a while. As for Jimmy Kimmel, the best thing he could do tonight is to come out and announce he's hired a few conservative joke writers so that his joke room won't be ideologically monolithic.
Why?
So
why does it matter what
because he has
jokes? Why does it have to be like equal opportunity for jokes? Why can't he just tell whatever jokes he wants to tell?
Well, he can say whatever he wants, but the stations that carry him operate with a public interest obligation. They only get to hold those frequencies if they're working in the public interest. Their news programs on those stations have to give equal time to both sides.
But there's nothing to say that Jimmy Kimmel, even under this very vague public interest standard, has to give time to viewpoints that he doesn't want to give time to viewpoints. He is a comedian.
He surely isn't.
Yeah, he
surely
can do whatever he wants.
And when he ran the Man Show, there certainly were a lot of objectionable things he did on that show that a lot of other people wouldn't have liked. I thought maybe he was going to have to go back and do the Man Show.
And Abby Phillip is spot on with what she's saying here. First of all, why should Jimmy Kimmel have to have a conservative viewpoint? And why should everything be 50-50? If there are 10 writers in the writer's room, 5 of them have to be conservative and 5 of them are liberal. That's nonsense. And also, the MAGA types like this Brad Todd want to make out like 50% of the country loves Donald Trump, 50% of the country hates Donald Trump. They're not going to say that hates, but 50% of the country totally supports Donald Trump and would be upset about what Jimmy Kimmel had to say. But the reality is we've got Donald Trump, at like a 37% approval rating right now. If I were being generous and I said, okay, he's 40%, just to make it easy. So 60% of the country disapproves of Donald Trump. So going by that, it wouldn't be a 50-50. if you're working in the public interest, it'd be 65-35 or maybe even 70-30, depending on where Donald Trump's popularity is. You've got anywhere from 60 to 70% of the country that would be completely on board with what Jimmy Kimmel had to say and seeing no problem with it. So if you're actually working in the public interest, you'd be on the side of Jimmy Kimmel. But of course, these MAGA pundits are all about misinformation and disinformation and being disingenuous on shows like Abby Phillip's.
He kicked him off. But I think the best thing he could do if he wants to bring the entire audience, make his audience bigger, not smaller, is to maybe be a little contrite tonight.
What do you say, Congressman Clyburn? The argument, and Brad's bringing up something I've heard from a lot of conservatives today, partly because there was a letter from Google, parent company Alphabet, that said that the Biden administration conducted repeated and sustained outreach and pressed the company to remove information around COVID that they thought was disinformation. So they're alleging that in a new letter, even though they didn't do it at the time. What do you make of the argument that those two things are the same?
Well, I don't think they're the same, simply because Biden, if any of this took place, these weren't jokes. This wasn't a TV show. This was a pandemic. And we didn't need to have misinformation going out about this pandemic. There was enough coming from the president at the time. Put Clorox in your veins? That's the kind of foolishness the Biden administration was trying to let's just say, oppose. And so what they were asking is, let's not put out information that you know is not true. We have the same problem going now. What's going to happen with Tylenol now? No science anywhere supports what the president said today about Tylenol. All of the science is to the contrary. So I don't think you ought to be trying to equate what happens to be an illness sweeping the world with somebody telling a joke on television.
And I think the other layer to it is that, I read what Google put out, but nowhere do they allege that the Biden administration threatened them.
First of all,
they don't allege that at all.
First of all, the collective anger over someone losing their job from the left was way more than someone who lost his life, first and foremost.
That's not true.
Second of all, I would argue, Congressman, you're absolutely right. It's more important to have an open and honest, fair, robust conversation, getting different viewpoints when you have a global pandemic that came in from China that was unforeseen, that was unprecedented, and no one ever thought possible. On top of that, it's always the Republicans, it's always conservative views that get silenced, shadow banned, censored from these various algorithms. The glitches never cut the other way. The mess ups in the coding never skew against Democrats. It's always conservative.
What are you talking about?
So Jimmy Kimmel coming back to air, fine. It was a business decision made by the parent company when he clearly wasn't going to apologize. He wasn't going to say he lied, even though he clearly did. The facts were already out there that it was not a MAGA shooter. He tried to make it so. So they have every right to kick him off the air, and they have every right to bring him back on. And Brad and I are going to disagree here. I don't care how many jokes he tells about conservatives versus liberals. I don't care how many guests he has on, whether they be more conservatives or more liberals. The marketplace will decide his fate and his future. And if he can't get ratings as he can't now, chances are his days are short on ABC.
And Hogan Gidley crying about how mistreated MAGA and conservatives are in terms of the algorithm. Some of the biggest political YouTubers and podcasters are right-wingers. Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, Steven Crowder. Joe Rogan did have the biggest podcast in the world. He got bumped by Midas Touch, but nobody's silencing Joe Rogan for all the conspiracies that he's thrown out for years. And that brings me to James Clyburn. What a spot-on assessment that he gives there in saying there's a little bit of a difference between misinformation and disinformation and propaganda about a pandemic and a guy telling a joke. But MAGA, they're the biggest collection of crybabies that I've ever seen in my life. They whine about everything. They cry about everything. Never mind that they have the largest platform in the world in the form of the presidency of the United States. Every word that Donald Trump says is covered by all of the media, by everybody on YouTube, by every podcaster. So spare me this idea that they're being silenced, but they're the eternal victims. These guys like Hogan Gidley and Brad Todd and Scott Jennings and Ben Ferguson that go on Abby Phillip's show every night. They're eternal victims and crybabies. And also, it's rich that Hogan Gidley talks about Jimmy Kimmel telling a lie when his God King, Donald Trump, lies with almost every word that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth is a lie. So again, spare me this idea that a comedian is telling a lie. But let me know what you think about all of this. Do you agree with Abby Phillip, what she has to say? Do you agree with Hogan Gidley and Brad Todd and the rest of MAGA that are crying about how mistreated they are? Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.